morning, people. Good morning, Ganesh, Rasika, Rutu, Chopde, Aditya, Muskan, Kirti Patil, Bini, Harshal, Tejas. Well, so many people have wished me good morning. Seems to be a great week for all of us. And let's start with our second, once again, I would say, ice-breaking lecture on geography. I call these as ice-breaking lectures basically because of the fact that we are, in fact, I spoke about it the other day also, that whenever you are taking up a particular subject, your focus should be very clear as to what all am I expecting in this particular subject. Going by that, when I speak about geography, I need to know about what all in geography should I be expecting. And in that sense, let me tell you all that unlike other science subjects, I would say geography is a subject which is called as a jack of all trades. Now, why do I call geography as a jack of all trades? I'm not tagging the rest of the saying to it, master of none. I won't say master of none. But when I compare geography to the other subjects as such, what happens is I find that geography, most of the other sciences, they grow like this, okay, from bottom to top, 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 and they go deeper and deeper and deeper into their respective subject. I would say I would not call it as the limitation of that particular subject, but I would say that the philosophy of that particular subject goes that way. On the other hand, you will see that geography is a subject which grows laterally. Yes, it has been growing vertically also, but it is a subject, and that is why it is called as a generalist subject one. Secondly, you'll see that the very fact that geography is a generalist subject, you'll see that it finds a lot of favor among students who are appearing for uh, the civil service exams. In fact, you'll see that unlike pure sciences, say for example, I as a graduate in geography would not take physics or chemistry as a optional subject in my civil services. But an engineer at times could select geography as her subject of appearing for the civil services. That is what makes geography a simple subject. That is what makes geography a very wide subject also. Every individual may find an interest in geography. I would further emphasize my point by saying that as far as the sun and the moon is concerned, leave aside the physical and the chemical aspects of both these celestial bodies. When we see even small kids who are hardly able to speak, and I'm referring to kids who would be 12 months and 18 months and 22 months, that's around 1.5 years and so on and so forth. When you catch those kids in your hands and you just tend to ask them that where is Chanda Mama or where is the sun, they'll immediately look where? To the direction. In the sense, you'll see that they will look east, they'll look west. Now, here, mind you, geography is a subject which wherein you grow with that particular subject. It's if I was to put the same thing in words, in the sense that nobody teaches you that the sun rises in the east, the sun sets in the west, that the moon normally is seen in the night. Now that doesn't mean that the moon's not there in the sky when at times during the daytimes also, but the sun at that particular point of time is so bright that you are not able to spot the moon. But you'll see that if you ask a small child to look for the moon during the daytime, the child will do like this, that she or he is not able to spot the moon. Now you'll see here there is no formal training as to watching the sun and watching the moon and so on and so forth. But still you learn that. There are so many other aspects also. But like I spoke the other day, that if you ask a student or a small kid about the periodic table, will she or he be able to refer to that? No. Then if you ask a child about angular velocity and acceleration, okay, these are things that come at a higher level. This is also a reason why geography is also called as the mother of all sciences. The fact that geography is a huge scope. Now, let us speak about how I'm purposely not going by the syllabus or by a particular topic, because I believe that any subject, as a matter of fact, okay, it is not that a subject that you should start going into the syllabus, because it may so happen that the topic in the syllabi would require some groundwork. And I would say that particularly for BSc students who have not done geography at an earlier class, who have done geography in Marathi at an earlier class, who have left geography way back in their 10th standard, all this revising of a lot many things in geography. And let me tell you that the geography that you tend to do in your school days has a very limited scope. In fact, I would call it as an informative learning of geography. Anyway, I'll come to this informative and process-based understanding of geography in some time. But as I said, we were speaking about the generalist pattern of subjects and the I would say the specialist pattern of subject. Along with geography, I would say another subject is a subject which like economics. Okay, now economics is done in arts faculty as well as the commerce faculty as well as the science faculty also. Again, just like geography, economics is also a generalist subject. But the fact remains that geography goes much beyond economics, because economics starts with money, money starts with man. And man, let me tell you, is not more than 5 million years. 5 million years is what? Around 50 lakh years. 5 million is 50 lakhs. I'll come to that point also about how we confuse, how Indians confuse themselves between lakhs and millions and crores. And probably tomorrow I will note it down, and probably tomorrow we'll discuss how to understand this, because science students more tend to require these numbers. And many a times I see students confuse themselves between millions, billions, that's on the international scale, and lakhs and crores, that is how Indians count their numbers more regularly, I would say. So that's about economics, that's about say geography. Then you'll see that two more subjects from science, say for example, mathematics and statistics. These are subjects which find their applications. They have their own theory, obviously. They have their own theory, but they have a lot of applications in other subjects also. You'll see that as far as mathematics is concerned, okay, you start with finding an x, you find a y, you find a z, and these x, y, z's are there. X, y, z is basically variables. Okay, you would have question. Otherwise, you would have a question mark. In core mathematics, you would say 2 plus 2 is a question mark, and that is 4. Okay, now I remove that question mark and I say 2 plus 2 is x, and then something plus something is y, and something plus something is z. Now that value of unknown, searching that unknown, I could be searching that unknown in geography in the form of maths. I could be searching that for a value of some equation in chemistry. I would be searching for that some physical equation for physics, and so on and so forth. So you'll see that a subject like mathematics will have its own theory as well as it has its a lot of application. Of course, all subjects have their applications. And coming to the fact that what then is the basic difference between mathematics and statistics? Most of you all must be having both the subjects as your subjects as far as your FYBSc is concerned. Many a times you'll see that these things tend to be so subtle that you would say, oh, okay, I know that. But that is that minute thing which at times you tend to escape, and then you confuse yourselves between these two. Now, as far as mathematics is concerned, I would be more precise of defining the value of x. I would be more precise in defining that value of y or z, and I would work out a n number of equations to identify that value of x and y. I want to be very precise about the value in mathematics. Now, it so happens that in nature, not all the values require to be that precise. You can be round about that particular value. You could say that probably this could be the value of my answer, and so on and so forth. So there is where that subtly you shift from mathematics to statistics, from being right, precisely right, to being probably right. And there is where probability comes in statistics. So the probability of my answer being right is so much so percent, and so on and so forth. So that is a subtle difference. Both these subjects have their applications. Now, those subjects would, or that research in respective subjects, which would require a very precise value, would be making use of mathematics. That subject in sciences or otherwise also, both these subjects are such that they find their calculative value in all, in humanities, in economics, and in commerce, and of course in science also. So with my purpose, I would select that, okay, I would be selecting a technique from mathematics, or I would be selecting a technique from statistics. Every subject has its value, let me tell you. The given scope of all these subjects is so huge, and they are so interdisciplinary and so interconnected to each other, that it becomes out of scope for every individual to attend to all these subjects at a particular point of time. And that is why I select a certain number of subjects. Can these certain number of subjects that you're supposed to be selecting is basically dependent on some psychological formulae, that in a university, you'll see that as far as the first year levels are concerned, the number of subjects that you're supposed to learn at that particular year is more or less the same, because all this is calculated much beforehand. You took an admission into that particular class, and going by what is called as pedagogy, okay, the science of education, they say that, okay, at first standard, this is enough. At fifth standard, this is enough. At 10th standard, this should be enough. At 12th standard, this should be enough. Now, interestingly, you'll see that as far as 10th and 12th standard, I don't know how many of you all have made a conscious effort to note this, but you'll see that as far as 10th standard, where it is a board, and if it is a state board, obviously, you'll see that the syllabus stays true throughout the state. And as far as a CBSE board is concerned, the syllabus stays true in CBSE schools throughout the country. And of course, then you have the ICSE and so on and so forth. But an interesting point is that when it comes to boards, a syllabus which could pan across all the places is identified as a syllabus for that exam. So, for example, as far as geography is concerned, in 10th standard, you'll see that you have more of that India aspect into it. You could have the physical part of India, you could have the human part of India. And the same thing goes on for 12th also. Comparatively, as far as history is concerned, you'll see that you have the national movement at 10th standard. So what the purpose of it having that particular topic at that particular level is the fact that it becomes understandable across all levels, across all tables as such. And having said this, let me tell you that when we speak about these subjects, and when you are speaking about these subjects generally across a group of friends and so on and so forth, you say that that subject is very tough and that subject is easy and so on and so forth. Let me tell you that there is nothing like a subject being easy or tough. There is nothing like a subject being good or bad. Okay, I see many students fear mathematics. In fact, I was one of the students in my higher secondary. I had to quit maths basically because I thought it was a very difficult subject. But then I have realized over a period of time that no subject is good or bad, no subject is easy or tough. Had mathematics being tough enough, you would see that students would not be scoring 100 out of 100 in mathematics. So there is a technique of studying a particular subject to score marks. Of course, then the whole discussion would go to scoring marks in a particular subject. I don't want our discussion to be related to that only. But then understanding a particular subject is not in relation to whether that subject is easy or tough, whether that subject is scoring or not scoring, and so on and so forth. It is more to do whether you have an aptitude for that particular subject. And let me tell you that that aptitude that you may or you may not have for a particular subject would be dependent on so many other things, in the sense that do you have a proper access to the readings of that particular subject as you grow in your schools? What are the type of teachers that you may have had as far as your school are concerned? Now it may so happen that that a teacher is fine, but on that particular day when he she was giving you the basics of that particular subject, you are not able to attend. And the non-attendance, in the sense, it is not only physical, it is mental also. Many a times you also will realize that you are sitting in the class, many of you all right now across your laptops or across your mobile phones would be hearing to what I'm saying. But I bet that a significant number of all these students, around 52 who are attending right now, they would be thinking about something else. So it may so happen that in this process, so the link, the philosophy of a particular subject may vanish, and that may take months, that may take years to come back. And that is what happens with every subject. And development of an aptitude for a particular subject, developing a liking for that particular subject. And of course, I put this point as the last point, that scoring marks in that particular subject. Of course, in the university pattern that we have in India, somewhere, in fact, unfortunately, scoring marks is at the top of this particular subject. But I have seen this difference between students of the science faculty and students of the arts faculty, that while science faculty students tend to crave for marks more, I've seen that arts faculty students do not crave for that marks more. And I'm referring to that 15-20%. I'm not referring to the n marks or the larger number of students. Okay. And I'm more worried about that 10, 15, 20% of student, basically because they are these people who decide the fate of a particular subject. If you have a very intense interest in a particular subject, you would go into the details of that. But having the potentiality of going in intensively in a particular subject, unfortunately, you are not able to understand that. Then the whole purpose of dividing this whole education system into various groups, initially, of course, various faculties, and then groups, etc., is going to be not that useful. Okay. Now, coming back to geography and coming back to the statement that I said, that geography is more of a generalist subject, I can give you a very interesting example about why I refer to geography as a generalist subject. Now, I have a lot of interest in traveling by public transport. And whenever I'm not traveling with my personal private vehicle, I make it a point that I use a lot of public transport. I got this habit way back since I as a student, I was, and I have been a student of SP College itself. Let me tell you that also. And I was staying in say now it's within Pune, but then at that particular point of time, it was supposed to be a distant place, and that is Pimpri Chinchwad. Now, I used to travel by train, I used to travel by bus. Somewhere I picked up a liking for public transport. And fortunately, for the first 15 years of my teaching career, I went to Mumbai in a government college. I was teaching there. And there too, I used to travel. Of course, in Mumbai, you have no but much option than traveling by public transport as such. The point I wanted to make here is probably that developed the liking for public transport, and I don't mind traveling public transport. There are a lot many students who tend to ask me, sir, how do you travel by public transport? It is so difficult. I use my own vehicle and so on and so forth. I don't know. I picked up this habit and I now like traveling public transport. Of course, I have not been doing that for the last 6-7 months because of the corona pandemic. But Whenever I used to travel for using a public transport, I used to be waiting for a bus at the bus stop just across SP College. And if the bus takes time to arrive, uh, I again had this habit to drop in conversations, or say people drop in conversations with me. And the first thing that you ask is, where are you, and what do you do for a living, and so on and so forth. The moment I say I am a teacher, they would ask me, what is the subject that you teach? And believe me, the moment I say I am teaching geography, people have a host of questions for you. And these questions vary. Okay, say it could vary from earthquake in Kathmandu to the rains in Vidarbha, or the rains in Rajasthan, or the rains in Assam, or it could be with reference to some social issue somewhere in the Middle East. I'm purposely giving you the string of events to let you know what people think about geography. What is the general perception of geography? So the moment you meet a geography teacher, you can ask anything from politics to population, to environment, to climate change, to heavy rains, to earthquakes, to landslides, anything. So that itself defines the scope of geography, which is very broad. Now, in another case, just imagine that I had been a teacher of chemistry or physics, and of course, I mean no intended harm to these two subjects. I equally like these two subjects because they contribute equally large as far as my subject also is concerned. But just imagine a teacher of chemistry or physics standing at a bus stop, and somebody asks him or her that, to sir or ma'am, which subject do you teach? And the moment you ask chemistry or physics, giving away the last week wherein the Nobel Prizes were announced, and provided that particular person has been reading about the Nobel Prizes that have been coming out day after day, it's throughout the last week as such, I don't think that any person, any layman, I would say, any layman would dare to ask questions in physics and chemistry with that intent, as to that the same person would ask me questions as a teacher of geography. So that is what makes geography more applicable. That makes more geography a more received subject. At the same time, there are so many queries about geography that need an analysis. Okay, why did a person ask me about a particular event in geography? Because they know about that event, but they don't know the details of that particular event. That is what is making geography more and more important day by day. So, for examples of these, last week we had these rains and there was waterlogging, and people start asking that, firstly, of course, why is rain falling in such an intense levels this time of the year? Why is there waterlogging in different parts of the city, and so on and so forth? So, from planning to resources to rain itself to climate change, anything and everything would be a part of geography. And that is, as I just said, that is what makes a difference in learning geography these days. Because when I say geography has been a mother of all sciences, it is the mother of all sciences and majority of the subject. It is basically because for a significant period of time, geography has been an informative subject. Okay, and I could prove that in the sense that in most of the schools, okay, when you were in schools, just imagine and just think of the questions you were asked for as far as your exams, right, from 5th standard to 10th standard. The questions were like, what is the circumference of the earth? What is the polar diameter of the earth? What is the equatorial diameter of the earth? Then what is the distance between the sun and the earth? What is the distance, average distance between the moon and the earth? What is this? What is that? Then you come to name 4 features of erosion as far as a river is concerned. Name 5 features as far as deposition, as far as glaciers are concerned. I'm going to give you a link into all these things. Now, what are we expecting Okay, you'll see that the questions asked, what is the height of Mount Everest? And you'll see that it does not stop here. It does not stop in your school. You'll see that whenever you come to these events like Kaun Banega Karodpati and so on and so forth, what are the type of questions they ask? Yes, we know that it is geography, but what are the type of questions that they are asking? It is more of informative, whether you have an information about this or not. And you'll see that similar questions are asked in competitive exams also. Informative questions. So geography for a significant period of time has been an informative subject. Okay, how much information you had. And of course, that is also not wrong. Okay, having information in geography is not, of course, it's equally well studying geography itself. Because if you ask me for a very small definition of geography, you say that, sir, give us the most brief definition of geography. I would say geography is the study of Earth in space and time. Geography is the study of Earth in space and time. So obviously, from the first point wherein man gained some experience about his surroundings and he started noting what he had around him, from trees to animals to wind to sunlight to mountains to rivers. Okay, and the scope, given the size of a human being and the size of the earth was so huge, the time that it took for him to record all this has been significantly long. Because this time has been long enough, what happens is a considerable time has been spent in gathering information. And geography tends to be a subject which tends to gather a lot of information. Now, there is a reason behind this also. I'll come to that at a later point. But through, say, the several years, or I would say several thousands of years, that man has been gathering information, initially keeping it here. Then he adopted to a style of recording it somewhere. He recorded it on walls of caves. Eventually, he invented paper. Eventually, he invented printing, and he printed volumes and volumes of information. And you'll see that a few thousand initial years were basically spent in understanding things around himself only. And that is why you have pockets of civilizations. You have the Indian civilization, or what is also called as the Indus civilization. You have the Egyptian civilization, and then you have the Inca civilization in South America, and you have the Chinese civilization. Okay. And it is only, say, around 500, 600, 700 years ago that we started traveling in different directions. Yes, we in history we have a mention of Indians traveling abroad, but I am referring to written history, particularly when we are speaking about the so-called as Renaissance that happened in Europe, and after that we had the Industrial Revolution. You'll see that it is through the period of the Renaissance in Europe and, of course, the Industrial Revolution that Europeans started going into different directions. And we have the Columbuses and we have the Magellans who went into different directions. And as they reached their different continents, right from North America to South America to Australia to Africa, that doesn't mean that these continents did not have habitations before the Europeans arrived here. But the Europeans took all that information and they put it together in the sense that, okay, this particular area around the equator was favorable for this particular type of crops, and so on and so forth. So they kept on gathering a lot of information. So even today, in fact, till say around 100, 150 years ago, a lot of this information, geography was a lot about information. Having said this, let me tell you that not more than 400, 500, till around 400, 500 years ago, we believed that the earth was flat. And people said that you could walk to the end of this flat top of the earth and you would fall off, and so on and so forth. Obviously, they were not aware of the scientific concept of gravity and so on and so forth. So it's in the last 100, 200, 250 years that we have started analyzing the processes. A simple example to what all I have put it together is from the point wherein I have been asking a question as to what is the height of Mount Everest, which is 8,850 meters. In fact, that Till 10 years ago, we used to say that the height of Mount Everest is 8,848 meters, and now we say that it's 8,850 meters. What brought about this change? Okay, it was the more precision. It is more of the technology that came to forth. Okay, it is not that the Mount Everest grew by 2 meters within that span of time, but the way in which we used to measure this has changed. And in fact, it is not about the height of Mount Everest only. It is all about the process about how the Mount Everest may have gone to that particular height. How is that you have this chain of mountains that you have all around the say the Mount Everest, which is called as the Himalayan chain. What went into making of this mountain chain? So that is how geography gradually shifted. Once we have had an ample amount of information, geographers started thinking about, okay, I have this information, but why is it that Mount Everest is the tallest? Why is it that it is in India? Why is it that you have so much of a mountain complex around it? Why is it that you don't have as large a mountain complex in Europe, that's the Andes? Why is it that don't have this larger complex in the Rockies? Why is it that while the Andes and the Himalayas have more of an east-west orientation, the Rockies and the Andes have a north-south orientation? Now, I'm referring to these basically because all these mountains have a formation period of say around about the same time, and we are going to do about this in geological time scale also. And while we are seeing about this, then we come to think about the Aravalis. What is the age difference between the Aravalis and the Himalayas? Though they are so near to each other, why is it that so many millions of years that separates? So all these questions gradually, okay, required the study of geography on what is called as a process based. So information is there, new information is obviously coming in, but at the same time, we now have to analyze this information with regards all the question marks that we had as far as all this information is concerned. And that is what is making geography an interdisciplinary subject. That is what is making geography a subject which borrows from all other subjects also. And that is what makes geography a superficial subject. That means it makes a geographer more of a generalist rather than a specialist. The the logic behind this particular subject, I would say, if you ask me, sir, what do you think the role of a geographer is? I would say the role of a geographer is to answer those questions of the layman who is asking you questions where you stand when you stand at a bus stop or when you are standing somewhere. People may have questions. Okay, and I remind you again that people will not ask questions about the periodic table and the angular velocity and so on and so forth, or say some genus and some species and commonality between such species. They will have very simple questions. So someone learning some subject has to answer these questions coming down to the layman's level. Every layman will not understand the higher level of say studies in respective subjects. As a consequence, what happens is that when I learn geography, the fact that I say that I'm borrowing, I'm borrowing advanced learnings from physics, chemistry, biology, economics, history, psychology, and I'm making them very simple for the very reason that this simple information has to be passed on to the normal people or the layman, I would rather say. So geography is that link. Geography is that link between advanced studies, bringing advanced studies, learning advanced studies to a level which then can be explained to the layman. And you always require such subjects. Okay, it would have been very difficult if subjects would have say carried on into special research and so on and so forth. And looking back, the scientists of these respective subjects would not be able to be in touch with the layman. Why does a scientist put all this effort? It's basically for the benefit of the society. Any subject you learn, It has to be, you have to give back to the society, isn't it? And I would tell you all also, any subject you choose as a principal subject in your TY, and the subjects that you choose for your SYBSc and so on and so forth, you have to be comfortable with that particular subject to an extent that when you say master that particular subject, when you get to be a bachelor in that particular subject, you should be able to apply the theory that you have learned in the first year, second year, and third year. You should be in a position to apply that to go to the society, to the need of the society. It will not happen overnight. Of course, you will build on that subject. You go for your masters and you may become a scientist, or you are working for someone at the same time you are using that knowledge to pass it on to someone. So unless and until your information, your knowledge about a particular subject is useful to the society, your studying of any subject is not going to be up to the mark, I would say. And the role of geography in all of this. So if you tend to be a geographer, I should be knowing a bit of everything around me. I should be knowing a bit of chemistry because I'm going to use chemistry when I'm going to learn chemical weathering. I need to know some physics because I need to know that, imply that physics when I'm calculating construction of a dam, the amount of water that I would require, that a particular city would require over a period of time. I would have to calculate the amount of debris that would flow down in case of a landslide. So that is how I'm putting it together. And in fact, you'll see that all this geography built together has given way to a new subject very recently, which is called environment or environmental sciences. Okay, and I would say environmental sciences is an advanced form of geography, wherein you go into the details of pollution. I'm using chemistry, I'm using physics. Okay, and so on and so forth. So geography connects itself to a lot of these things around itself. I would dare to say so that not many subjects would be in a position to connect themselves to that particular level. Of course, this depends on the number of students a particular subject has, one, and the number and the level to which the students of that particular subject have understood that particular subject. And that is why when I said that you have to be thorough with your subject by the time you do your bachelor's in that, is in other words, you should be able to play with your subject. You should be able to speak about your subject. You should be able to profess about your subject. Having said that, you should be knowing what is happening latest in your subject. You should be able to explain what has happened in your subject. What are the developments in your subject? And you would require minimum amount of references. What I said altogether can be read from a book also, but reading from a book and speaking about a particular thing is obviously different. The subject needs to be here rather than a paper or a book in front of you. And let me tell you, this applies for every subject, not only geography. It will apply for all the subjects around us. And that is what is making all your subjects that you learned till your HSC different to what you are going to start, you already have started learning in your undergraduate college. Okay, while till if you see your again your not only geography, in other sections also, you had to define an experiment, you had to do an experiment, you had to write about it. But at a graduate level now or an undergraduate level now, you need to know the process behind that also. And unless and until you start looking at your respective subjects from that point of view, you may not be comfortable with that particular subject. So to be comfortable as far as that particular subject is concerned, you have to know the subject from all the sides. Okay, front, back, top, bottom, every side. And this doesn't come overnight, let me tell you. Every subject has its huge scope. So it will gradually come. You need to keep reading about books, and of course I did speak about the fact that please don't go by the textbooks which are those 100 and 150 pages textbooks that are available in the market. I always ask my students to go by references. Yes, and that reminds me that last time when we met, I said I would be referring to how you're going to go into referencing as far as a particular topic in a particular subject is concerned. Let me show. I have a book in front of us now here. Okay, and okay, this is a book called as Oceanography. Now, this, of course, given the size of it, it is a reference book. Okay, now, like normal books, all books will have their say contents here. Now, this is again brief contents. But as far as referencing is concerned, the first stage of referencing is going through this. In fact, before that, you'll see that many books have the photograph of the author here and then what the book is about. So that is the first level of referencing. The second level of referencing is when you come across the contents, okay, the brief contents. You need to know which topic is placed where. But of course, these number of pages, are you going to invest all the time in reading through all these things? No. So there is another aspect to this referencing. Okay. When you go to the reverse side or the rear side of this particular book, you have two sections here. What do we have here? Okay. Let me tell you that you have appendixes. Okay. You have an appendix here. Then following the appendix, you would have what is called as a glossary. Now, what is a glossary? You see, a glossary is an arrangement of terms in an alphabetical way, explaining the details. Now, this glossary would have words from the text here, could have words which are related to the text but are not there in the text. So from A to Z, you will have all those words which make up the glossary. But referencing is beyond that. You could read from this glossary also. But then, as far as referencing, or what is also called as an index is concerned, you see that we have an index here. Now, what is this index? In a glossary, you had a term and you had the explanation to that particular term. In an index, you have a term. Okay, you'll see that it starts from A, and you'll have all the terms which start from A, and then just ahead of that, okay, just ahead of that, here you are going to have some numbers. What are these numbers? Now, as far as these numbers are concerned, these numbers are nothing but all those pages on which this particular word is going to be there. Now, let me tell you that, say for example, a book titled like Oceanography, a word of oceanography would be there, and all those pages, mind you, on which the word oceanography is there would be listed. Okay, so how do you use an index to reference? Now, there are some prerequisites as far as indexing is concerned. In the sense, first thing is you need to be very clear as to what you want to reference. Now, if you are referencing your syllabus, you need to know your syllabus well. That what is the context, what is the content in my syllabus. Having understood the context and content of my syllabus, then I need to know the words, major words of the syllabus. Having understood the words, I will search for that word in the index. Okay, I will search for that word in the index. I will check on which pages that word occurs in the major part of the book as such. And then I will come to know that, okay, on this particular page is the content which I was looking for. This is going to save you a lot of time. In the sense, had I not got the index with me, I would have had to go through the brief content, and then I would have to keep first, of course, search for that word. Okay, that minor word, if it would not have been there, I would have to read through all the text and would have been spending a lot of time and finally come to a particular topic, and then I would have read about that topic there. This saves me a lot of time. Okay, the indexing saves me a lot of time. So that is how I need to go about referencing. I'll just repeat the process. Okay, every reference book will have the explanation, the brief, very brief explanation on its rear side. Then it will have its content, the brief content. Go through that. If the major word is there, it's fine. Okay. Then you go to the glossary. If you find the word there, you can understand a brief explanation of that particular word. If you want a further detail on that, go to the index, search for that word, look for the pages on which that particular word is given. Come back to those pages, read through those pages. Okay, and once you read through those pages, you could have your answer to a question which you may be having at a particular point of time. So that is as far as referencing is concerned, and you would be using all this referencing to learn not only geography but your other subjects also. You'll see that many of your teachers will be listing you the various referencing books, okay, or you would be in the habit of going to the library or searching for those references on online. Of course, referencing has become easy on because of all this internet and online business, wherein the Google other way or otherwise is nothing but a ready-made reference. Okay, so you type a word in Google and you'll get the number of searches, and you'll see that at the base of Google, that particular page, you'll have that so many similar words found in so many seconds. But then the difficulty about searching for a reference on Google is the fact that you will have millions and millions of references. Okay, all the references using the word that you are looking for will be there. So unless and until you are very precise about what you want, Google could at times be risky. And you must have also experienced this at many a times, that you start looking for something and you end up looking for say watching something else. And this goes from studies to even web series as such. And in fact, as far as WhatsApp messages also are concerned, you may have invariably come across moments wherein you pick up your phone and you think about looking for something on your phone, and by the time you just open the screen and start looking for what you had picked up the phone for, something else catches your attention. You have some message from someone on WhatsApp, and you completely forget what you picked up the phone for, and you start looking for some message, and you get busy answering to that message, and so on and so forth. So a difficulty about online is the fact that digressing, you tend to digress a lot. You start for digressing basically means you start looking for something, you end up looking for something else. Now, if you have less amount of time at your hands, this would be a very difficult option for you. And that is why you'll see that hard book or say hard book referencing is much easier as compared to referencing on the online. Or else you need to be an absolute habit of being very focused. Let me tell you that 99.99% of the people on Google cannot be focused. You may say I am focused, but you are not. And day by day, let me tell you, day by day, this habit of online screening, streaming, etc., is bringing about an increase as far as digression is concerned. In fact, you'll see that every platform, every company, right from Facebook to YouTube to other things, they tend to bring about that aspect, or rather, they tend to cash in that particular aspect of digressing. Now, just imagine that if you are so focused on YouTube, you hardly would have visited Twitter or Facebook and so on and so forth. Okay, the very fact that this whole science works on the fact that human mind tends to wander here and there, that gives enough a reason to the fact that you have so many platforms, and you start searching for one thing, and then you go from one thing to the other thing, and so on and so forth. So you have to train. What I want to tell you all is you have to train your mind in such a way that you start looking for something, see that you end up looking for that particular thing. An easier way to do is direct referencing. You write down what you are looking for. So even though you may get digressed, but at the end of that digression, that point comes to your mind because you have it written in front of you, that, oh, I started looking for the height of Mount Everest, but I ended up looking for some range called as the Rockies in North America. But eventually you come back to that. So that is about referencing and digression. I warn you as a generation to minimize, every human being will get digressed. The present technology is such that it drives you to digression. But the more you tend to control your mind, okay, the lesser is going to be the digression. Okay, which is applied. A subject like geography, in fact, okay, is such a general subject that it itself, geography as a subject itself, would yield you a lot of digression. And because I know about geography, I can tell you about that. Your teachers in other subjects will be in a position to tell you about that. I think it's more than 50 minutes that we have been speaking, and you'll have to be joining some other class of your respective divisions as far as your respective subjects that you have to attend are concerned. We'll stop here for the day. Tomorrow we'll pick up from where we have stopped here. Until then, of course, stay home, stay safe. Thank you very much.